Welcome to the Grad Life Podcast, where we're talking all things grad.
I'm Rami, and I'm a grad student at Neumann University.
And I'm Jessica, a former grad student and current assistant director of graduate admissions.
Today, we're talking about what grad life is, from speaking about it to the application and the process itself. All right, let's get into it.
You know, I initially thought about having a podcast for graduate students because I saw a lot of schools and universities really just focusing on the undergraduate student, and the schools are more than just undergraduate culture. It's grad students as well, and adult learners. So I really wanted to kind of shed light to that. So in this podcast, we wanted to talk about graduate culture. We wanted to talk about being an adult professional worker while going to school. So I think a lot of times people they'll go to work and then have a home life, and then grad school is like their second thing. So we wanted to give grad students the opportunity to listen to us and hear in how to get into grad school, how to apply for jobs after grad school, what to do in a graduate school, and how to have and build a grad culture at your own school. So, that was one of the reasons why I really wanted to start this podcast. And I asked Rami to come along. As a current graduate student, I think it was, of course, important to have a student voice on here as well. And you had your own reasons as to why you wanted to start this podcast as well.
Yeah, so basically, I'm a first-generation college student. I didn't have help getting into undergrad. I just had my high school counselors and giving us the process of how to go through and apply to colleges and see what fits you. And at the time, like every teenager, some teenagers know that they want to go to grad school because they want to be doctors, they want to be physical therapists, but a lot of people like me, I was dead set on being a doctor, but like once I hit undergrad, I was like, yeah, I don't know if that's the right thing for me. And basically I was a little lost. I didn't know what to do after undergrad. And basically being a first generation college student, like I said, no one's there to really like guide you unless you have other friends that have been to grad school before, or people that have been in grad school. So it's sort of a foreign language to me, and I had to figure that all out on my own.
Yeah. And
that was a little bit of a struggle. But I mean, I got through. When I finally figured out I wanted to go through physical therapy school and familiarize myself with the process, it's for every different school, because each one has their own requirements, but they're generally the same. One might have an extra recommendation letter or whatever. It doesn't matter. I started working, getting all of my hours at my physical therapy clinics, and from there, all those PTs went through that process before, and they were able to guide me and tell me, hey, this is what you need to do. This is who you should probably get a letter of recommendation from. This is what they'll probably focus on. So there's a lot of different components that go into a grad school application, at least in PT. And trying to find a good support network will definitely help you. And I think when we do this podcast, it's going to help you, the listener, and everybody else that wants to listen, get a better understanding of the graduate school process and not like stress over it as much as they usually do. Because I think that's the biggest roadblock to applying to grad school.
Yeah. I think people get intimidated because it's like, oh, graduate school. But like, we're here to let you know that it's not as intimidating as you may think it is.
Right.
So that's great. And I think a part of that reasoning that I have too is, I have such a passion for higher education. I always have. I saw my parents, and they were first generation college students. And just being a Black woman, like seeing people achieve success and going to school and then going to college and then going to graduate school and going on to get a doctorate degree. I mean, that was huge. To see that for a Black little girl was like, that was amazing. So I wanted to be that. I wanted to do that. And that's another reason why I decided, hey, I'm going to go into higher education to help other students do that as well.
The more educated people we have, the better.
That's right. Rami, I know you shared a little bit, but maybe you can tell them a little bit more as to why you chose Neumann and why you ended up wanting to further your education.
Sure. So basically, we got to start from the beginning of my education career in undergrad. So I'm from New York City. I'll never shut up about that. Just saying that now. I started at Hunter College. That's where I earned my bachelor's, and I double majored in psychology and religion. Really out there, I know, but I enjoyed both of those subjects a lot, and I thought it would stand out if I were to apply to med school, which obviously didn't happen, but I still was really into those subjects. And then I took a year off because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. One of my best friends was like, Rami, you should definitely try PT. You're a people person. You like to talk to people. It's all about talking to people and giving them exercise and getting them to feel better, you know? And I was like, yeah, that's kind of half the job. That's like PT in a nutshell.
Yeah.
But it's a lot more than that, trust me. So then I started working at PT clinics and earning all my hours. Retook some prerequisite classes back at the College of Staten Island. I was just missing like 2 prereqs, anatomy and physics. Finished those and then started applying to PT schools. And right about that time was when COVID hit, so everything kind of like shut down. I got waitlisted that year, so I had to sit another year, and I gained a lot more hours, a lot more PT experience. The second round of the next year, when I applied to PT schools again, I only applied to like 3 different schools. And by the time I applied to those 3 schools, one of the PTs I worked with came up to me and she's like, Rami, you should apply to Neumann. I'm like, where's Neumann? I was like, I've never heard of it.
It's the golden question.
Yeah.
Where's Neumann?
Right, tucked out right in the little suburban Philadelphia, you know, right there in a little enclave in Aston, Pennsylvania. So I took a 15-minute break. I went and like researched it on my phone. I'm like, oh, okay, it's in Pennsylvania. It's not too far. She said one of her friends that she worked with, who was from Scranton, where she went to undergrad and PT school, went to Neumann for PT school, which, you know, cool. So the more I researched, the more I liked the program. I scheduled a tour with the director. He'll be on a future episode, by the way. Dr. B.
Little tidbit.
Yes. Stay tuned. And he showed me a tour, and I really liked campus. I really liked the vibe of the building, and it just felt like the right place to be. And on top of that, the turnaround from application to interview was 2 weeks, which was, it seemed ridiculous to me. And that was before we were on PTCast. All the other schools that I applied to took at least 2 or 3 months to get back to me about just an interview.
Wow.
So by the time I interviewed and got admitted to Neumann was when I finally got an admissions decision. Well, I got an admissions decision like 2 months after that for another school. And either way, I would have still accepted Neumann's offer. But from then on, I think it was the best decision and the best comment someone could have given me at the time. Because if it wasn't for that PT who suggested to me to apply to Neumann, I don't know what I would have done. That like sort of jump-started my life in a way.
Wow.
And I think just because Neumann gave me a chance, I'm trying to give back as much as I can to this college.
That's
to
awesome.
This university.
And I know you're telling the truth because you're a New Yorker and you always tell the truth.
We don't beat around the bush.
Yeah,
we tell it like it is.
Y'all are straight to the point. I love it.
Yeah.
All right.
Man.
So what would you say is the best aspect and the worst aspect of being in graduate school?
Best aspect is that the professors are always there for you. They're accessible. I think like whenever I've had a question, they've always gotten to me within a day. In undergrad, I never really had that. I'd have to wait until the next class to talk to a professor about something, or they always have an excuse as to why they don't read their emails.
Wow. And Hunter College is a smaller school, right?
Well, it's a commuter school. They've got like 14,000 people or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's 3 buildings on an intersection on Lexington Avenue, and it's kind of ridiculous. Check the 6 train if you ever go on it. Don't go on it during rush hour. It's kind of ridiculous. And the worst aspect of grad school, I mean, everybody's going to say this, but the workload is always like really high.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, it's grad school and you signed up for this. So, I mean, I'm not going to complain about it as much, but I think that's the downside for the most. And it depends on like what your social life really is as a grad student. Do you have a spouse? Do you have a family that you take care of? Everything layers on. For me, the worst part was just the work because I'm focused on that. And that's my number one priority because I want to be the best PT I can be. And I treat it as my full-time job. But you got to manage the workload and the time management. There's a component there. You got to find what works for you.
I like that you said that because you said that you treat PT school as your first time job. Whereas like I just said before, a lot of grad students will treat graduate school as their like second thing, like their second job versus like their first job maybe being a spouse or being a professional worker, and then their second thing is graduate school.
I'm fortunate enough to treat it as my full-time job. Like I still work in grad admissions with you, you know that, part-time. But there's some people in every program, there are people that don't work. They're in a program. There are people that work part-time. There are people that work full-time. Yeah. Just depends on how much of a time manager you are and how psycho you might be. I don't know, you know. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. You just got to find what works for you. And that's like the best piece of advice I could ever give somebody applying at least a DPT.
All right. Yeah. I love it.
How about you?
Now, all right. So I did also get my graduate degree at Neumann as well. So I think, like I said, the reason why I wanted to go and get a higher education was because as a little girl, I was told that, look, you're going to be in the special education classes. You're not smart enough for this. You're below the grade level of what you should be. So I was always told that. And I knew that it was honestly because I wasn't really interested in what I was learning. So for me, I went on and said, look, I'm going to get a graduate degree. You know, whether I ended up working at the school or not working at the school, I was planning on getting a graduate degree. But I ended up doing business and organizational leadership here at Neumann. And honestly, the program itself gave me a way to customize what I wanted to learn. It gave me a way to say, look, yes, I'm getting a business degree, but I'm able to come up with an innovative idea to take back to my organization. And this being one of those ideas, creating a podcast for grad culture. So like writing out a plan of how I plan to incorporate all of my ideas into Neumann University. And then obviously Neumann allowing me to do that was just another amazing factor of this school, even on the employee side. So that's kind of why I decided to go into a graduate degree, and then one that specifically let me customize what I wanted to learn and what I wanted to research.
I can tell you're telling the truth about that too.
Oh, yeah?
For the last few months, Rami, can you do this part for the podcast? Can we do this? Rami, I think we should do this and that. Hey, Jess, let's have a meeting about this podcast. Let's figure out everything. Let's have this good order that we're going to do. Let's make a timeline, schedule it all out. 50 million Excel spreadsheets, this big, long Word document with everything in it. It's like the Bible.
No, I'm not a nutcase.
No.
I am passionate.
She's very passionate.
And big kudos to Neumann Media and Rami for dealing with my chaos throughout this whole process.
Not bad-mouthing you whatsoever,
no.
I promise. Just a little tease here and there.
Just meet me in real life. You'll see.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not as crazy as...
She's wonderful. Not me being sarcastic at all, I promise.
He can't lie. He's a New Yorker, remember?
No. All right. So, Jess, what are the key components of a strong graduate school application?
Some of the key components of a strong graduate school application is to just remember to be yourself. I think that's number one. You're not trying to put on a front of who you want this person to believe you to be or
I think that's so much harder to do than just being yourself.
Oh, yeah. It is. It's so much harder because then you have to pretend and like write a resume and like do different things that are like fake, and then you're using like Chat GPT or GPT, whatever it's called. Is it GPT?
GPT, yeah.
GPT, okay. Yeah. That's like a whole nother conversation. But
I'll introduce you someday.
Yeah, so basically you're using like different things to like make your application look stronger or present yourself differently. Just be yourself. A lot of these times when graduate schools are asking for you to write a writing prompt or a writing sample, you may take like a month to write it because you're like so worried about how you're going to be viewed and judged. And this is such a big decision, but just relax. All the admissions folks really want to see is the passion behind why you want to do this. So if you're able to just cut out all of the other stuff and just say, look, I want to get a master's in education because I love students and I want to teach them better. I want to find different strategies to teach them better. That's why I'm going on to get my graduate degree. Or, I want to apply and write a graduate letter for business and organizational leadership because I want to give my organization something and have a space to write a business template on how to do something better at my organization. So just tell us the truth. Tell us what you're passionate about and tell us why you think this would be a place for you to move up higher in your position or maybe change careers. I think that's a big one too. A lot of students are now applying to grad school in a field that has nothing to do with their undergrad or nothing to do with their current job. And they're just looking to apply to grad school to have a change of career. And so just explain that, explain some of the things that maybe you've done to help that. Maybe you took some certifications in that field and that's, why you're now looking into changing your career and getting a master's degree in something completely different than what you did your undergrad in. So I think that's one of the main key components is just to be truthful and honest on your application. So, and I know we're probably going to talk a little bit about this later, but like letters of recommendation are of course important. This is your chance to shine. So in that, kind of have a fine line of being honest in who you are and then also putting your best foot forward. Right. So, and then when you put it out there, that's it, you're either going to get accepted, waitlisted, denied, whatever it is. And, whatever that will be, that's your next step. If you're waitlisted, then hopefully you'll get in at a later date. If you're denied, try applying again and maybe show some improvement. So, I think that's the most important thing, those aspects.
Yeah, I remember when I wrote my essay for PT school, I struggled for like 2 weeks trying to figure out what I want to write about.
Yeah. Because
I had no idea. I'm just sitting there. It's like, you remember the SpongeBob meme when he's like furiously writing and then all that comes out is the?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was me.
Wow.
That was me.
Wow. Did you submit the as your graduate application?
No, fortunately not. Imagine if I didn't. I still came in. I must have, other parts of my application must have been like.
Amazing, right? Yeah.
Fantastic. No, but I ended up writing about my experience with chronic kidney disease.
Wow.
And going through my experience of that and seeing that like the PT that helped me after I got my transplant, they got me out of bed because honestly I didn't want to get out of bed.
Wow.
Because you're just so tired, you don't want to do anything. But outcomes show if you get out of bed, the earlier you get out of bed, the faster you recover.
Yeah.
Pretty much, like to simplify it. So I wrote about that and then my experience working as an aide and helping all these other people get better because they all don't believe it on their first day when they get eval'd. They don't think they're going to get that much better.
Yeah.
And then you see them 2-3 weeks down the road. Oh, Rami, I know you. I remember you telling me I'm going to get better. Or that's not something you're supposed to say, but I remember you saying like, you just give it a chance.
Yeah.
And like just to see the smile on their faces, to see that they're getting back to the life they love and getting more functional again is like the satisfaction there. I said it more eloquently in my essay.
Of course, yeah.
But it was just for like, I'm freestyling
you told your passion. You told the truth. You told your personal experience.
Yeah.
And I think that shines so much more than trying to come up with some type of fluff piece.
Yeah. It took me 20 minutes to write it.
Yeah.
It just came out. I just kept on typing and it just filled up 3 pages. All right, good. Submit, done.
Yep. Yeah.
And just let Jesus take the wheel after that.
That's right. And
I
think, having that piece added into it, and then I know this isn't necessarily like a part of the application, but staying in contact with the school is huge.
Big one.
I mean, if you have your name recognized by the people reviewing your application, that's a good sign. I mean, you're like, look, this person, I know this name, and already, they stand out to me because they've been in contact with us. They have asked important questions, and they showed that they're going to be an excellent student in this program, because that's all admissions professionals really want to see is, are you going to succeed? In grad admissions, the director of admissions always says, we go from app to cap. So from the applicant stage,
I like that,
all the way to you're wearing that graduation cap. That's what's important to us, to see you succeed all the way through that time period.
Right. We've had a few of those students in the past year.
Oh, yeah?
You can remember.
Yeah.
Huh?
App to cap.
Well, not apt to cat, but students that we recognize right away if we see their names.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I've been fortunate enough to meet a few.
Yeah, it's awesome, honestly, to like see everything like on an application and just read you by paper, and then you come to
right in front of your eyes.
You come to a information session, or you come to an open house or new student orientation, and it's like, wow, I've been working with you, emailing you, calling you, seeing your name come up on different files, and now you're here as a student. It's such a satisfying feeling.
And put the name to a face, as they say.
Yeah.
Oh man,
I love it.
Do you want to just talk about the letters of recommendation then, since we're on the topic?
Yeah, we can talk about the letters of recommendation. I always say it's best, and different schools that you apply to may have different requirements or be more strict on this, but I always say it's best to have different types of people write you a letter of recommendation. So if you have somebody that you're working with and working for, you want somebody that maybe is above you to write you a letter of recommendation. So, you want your either professor, an academic letter of recommendation is excellent, or a professional worker that is your supervisor at work to write you a letter of recommendation. Those are really the key people that you want. Don't send in a letter of recommendation where your brother wrote the letter.
No.
Or you have like maybe a coworker that wrote your letter for you and knows you more on like a same level person versus somebody that supervised you. So try to get those people to write you a letter of recommendation, and also pick a person that is going to write you the letter of recommendation. If you have a person who raves about you, but maybe they take about 3 weeks to get back to you in an email, that might not be the right person that you want to write you a letter of recommendation, because you would hate for that to be your holdup. When you're applying to graduate school, it could happen very fast, relatively speaking, in most schools. It could happen very fast if you submit all of the requirements for your application. So if you have everything submitted on your part and you're waiting on one person, Bob, your old supervisor, to write you a letter of recommendation, and they're taking weeks to write you that, then maybe you should give another name to write you a letter of recommendation,
Yeah, I've always found it helpful to, if you plan on applying to grad school and the deadline's 3 months ahead, you might as well get those letters of recommendation like started at least. Yeah. Like one of the first things ever.
Yeah.
I did the same thing. One of mine took a while. He waited until like the last week to apply.
Yeah.
Or send my letter of recommendation in. And I was hounding him every week about it because he was my director at my physical therapy clinic.
Wow.
And he was the one guy I was still waiting on. I had him, I had the regional director, and then I had my physics professor apply, and then I had one physical therapist from another setting that I volunteered at for 3 months.
Now, I'm sure that anxiety was like going through the roof when like he wouldn't submit his letter of recommendation.
No idea. Every single week. I'm looking at I'm right in front of you, man, for every single day I work here. Like, how do you not remember to write my letter? I've asked you every single week.
Honestly, I would say like if you have a person like that, right, where you're seeing them every single day and it's like, okay, are they going to write it? Should I ask them? Should I like, those aren't the people.
Yeah,
because they're busy. They mean well, but they're busy, and that's okay. Everybody gets busy at work.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not their strong suit. Maybe they love to talk about you and rave about you, but they can't physically sit down and write a letter of recommendation.
I don't think that was most of the case, but I mean, I ended up getting the letter anyway, but you're speaking facts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking facts. So, I mean, if you're on a tight deadline, don't wait on these people. Find someone else. Mm-hmm. What do you think about another aspect of the application about like GRE and GMAT scores? How important are they?
If the school's requiring them, then take them early.
Yeah.
Take them again if you have to. If the school's super score, then that's great. I know fantastic. A lot of schools, they're requiring the GRE less, but if a school is still requiring it, take it. Most schools, and I'm speaking relatively, but most schools will review holistically. So don't stress so much about this standardized test because it will drive you up a wall. Like, I mean, like, you're like, I'm not a good test taker. meaning I'm not going to be a good student. And that's not the case
true
at all. No.
at all.
You've got literally like a 3.9 GPA coming from your undergrad, and then you're worried about, oh, I'm going to get a bad GRE score, and that's going to be the reason I'm denied. Don't stress over it.
Yeah.
And I think this just goes back to the key components of a graduate school application. Like, as soon as you take it, you're done. You did the best that you absolutely could. You submitted it, and that's it. Turn it in.
Yeah.
And, you
It
know,
just goes
then
to
it's
show.
it's just up in the air at that point. So you have to figure out, like, what's really important in that case. Like, am I going to stress over taking the GREs? Am I going to stress over writing this writing sample? Or am I just going to do it and then give it to the admissions office?
Yeah, like you were saying about like that person with a 3.9 GPA. Like, how do you think you got your 3.9 GPA?
Right. You're smart.
Yeah, you're
You can
smart.
do it.
You got really high grades in all your exams.
Exactly.
How do you think your classes are structured? Same thing. Like, even if you have a lower GPA, like lower than desirable or the recommended GPA for a program, it doesn't mean you're not you're not eligible to apply.
I hear students that are years out of school, they're so concerned because they're like, wow, when I was 18, I did horrible in college.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, a lot of people did horrible in
You're
college.
just distracted.
Yeah.
You're a kid.
It's a changing time. You're coming from high school to college, and it's completely
transition.
different. Yeah. And, you know, if your GPA showed that, then that's okay. Maybe you went through a tough time in college, and that's why your GPA.
My classmates are like that.
Yeah.
And some of them are the smartest people that I know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not the end of the world if you have a sub-3 GPA whatsoever. I don't like looking at that. It doesn't define you as a student. It doesn't define me.
Yeah.
Like, am I ashamed that I could have done better? Yeah, of course. But it is what it is. Like, it's just on there. Make sure you do good on your prerequisite courses. Do your, just blow us away. Be personable. Be who you are in a graduate
all
school
about
application.
that holistic review.
Exactly.
And
That saves you.
ask the schools too. How heavily do you guys look at this? Do you guys review holistically? Am I just being considered off my prereqs? Am I like, you can talk to the schools and have open communications.
I've never thought of doing that when I was applying. Like, I just always thought it was just an institution, and I just apply and hope they choose me.
But people in the institution, they're people. It's people talking to people. So don't be afraid to go to a school and ask questions. No dumb question is a dumb no question is a dumb question. So don't be afraid to reach out to them.
Do you have any that come to mind, like any common mistakes that people do on their applications to grad school?
maybe writing down the wrong email address, maybe wrong phone number, maybe not including their social security number, even though they are applying for the FAFSA. So just some common errors, human errors that people may make. But I think, like I was saying, it all goes back to maybe they included their brother as their reference, and it's just like certain things that like you shouldn't do, but it happens and you see it happen. But a lot of times schools are heavily communicating with their students, especially like a smaller school. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Especially like a smaller school like Neumann, we communicate a lot with the students that are in the application stage. So really along the way, we're there to offer guidance to the student because, we want you to apply. We want you to continue moving forward. So I think that that's super important, a super important factor. But yeah, every once in a while you do see a little of those mistakes.
So I want to go back a little bit to a conversation we were having a little earlier about some people who are like way out after undergrad, like they haven't gone to grad school. Or people that just take a gap year. How do graduate schools like us, let's say, view that? Do we, is it a positive, negative thing? Is it neutral? Do we care? Like, how does that go?
Yeah, no, we appreciate seeing that. I think life happens, and not every single person is going to go from undergrad to grad school. And honestly, it really depends on the program that you're interested in, but it's almost a positive to take a gap year. And I tell a lot of students that, you mature so much after you leave college. Like,
Oh yeah.
once you leave college and you hit the real world, and then all of a sudden 6 months later you have to start paying back those student loans, that hits you like a ton of bricks. And you're like, okay,
Yeah.
all right, I got to pay this. I need a job. I need to pay for my car note. I need, you have things to do at that 22, 23, 24 age. And I think that provides you with a lot of maturity. And then a lot of times you get placed into an entry level position. So maybe you're working for an organization and you're just starting out and you're learning the small things, like little things that go on within an office, how to write a professional email, how to talk professionally to somebody. You're learning a lot. So that really helps when then you're looking to come back to grad school. So I always say, like, students that take that gap year, I mean, they take grad school so much more seriously because they're like, I'm not playing around with this. I know what I've done in my life so far after graduating from college, from undergrad, and this year or 10 years have been so great to me as far as learning and experiencing different things and learning how to work-life balance. And then when they become grad students, they're like, wow, graduate school was actually kind of easier than undergrad because I learned so much more. I learned how to kind of adult better.
Yeah.
So it's like you then take it more seriously. When you're writing your papers, you're like, look, no, I'm going to sit down for the next couple hours and write this chapter, or I'm going to write this assignment, or I'm going to study for this exam and make sure I do good on it. Versus, just not taking it as seriously, maybe like you would in your undergrad career.
I think also, like, when you're taking that gap year after you graduated undergrad, let's say, that whole time before that grad year, your whole personality changes that you're a student.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you've been coddled. You've based your life all on grades. And once you hit the real world, it's time for you to, like, you start to think and figure out yourself in a way.
Mm-hmm.
You find who you are as a person. And I think that's super helpful. I encourage everybody to take a grad year. But if you don't want to waste time, as some people say, or you're fine, just go to grad school right after undergrad. If you can get in, if you've got great grades, whatever, it's cool. But there's no shame in taking a gap year whatsoever between undergrad and grad, in my opinion.
I 100% agree. All right.
So, Jess, are there any other specific resources or strategies to help applicants narrow down their choices and select the right program for them, like graduate school programs?
Yeah.
Like, what would you say are some specific resources and strategies?
So I would say do your research before applying to these schools, because I can tell you right now, as soon as you apply to a school, you're going to get lots of calls and lots of emails from all the schools. And you haven't even made, your top 3 choice yet. But I would say, do a lot of, we're in 2023 now. So do the website researches and make sure that you understand what the school has to offer. And then as a graduate school, it's not necessarily like picking your undergrad, right? You're not picking, I like this place because they have nice dorms or they have a nice dining hall. You're not really experiencing that as much as a grad student. So really choose the place based off what your interest is. If you know that you need a fully online program, don't apply to an in-person program because you're not going to make it to class at a certain time, or you're not going to want to commute that much after work. So just kind of pick it off based what you want, and then if you narrow it down to like your top 3 schools, make sure you're going to the campus. Even if you are an online student, go see the campus, see what it's like, see what the people are like at the school, and get a better understanding of the in-person environment. And then, if you are looking at a school and you're thinking, all right, I don't want to go to a school with a big cohort, then maybe look at a smaller school. Ask the admissions reps, like, hey, did you go to the school? What was your experience like? Ask to talk to a current student. At Neumann, we have students that talk to you. You know, if I have an
Had a few.
interested doctor of physical therapy student, I encourage them to talk to a current student that we have at Neumann, to be able to get a student perspective, because I'm not going to be able to give that perspective to them, but a current student would be able to.
Yeah, I had one that you forwarded to me, and we had a phone call, and she asked me some of the most detailed questions I've ever had.
Yeah.
And she ended up getting admitted to this program, so I see her all the time.
Look at that. That's an exciting turnaround, right?
She's my bestie now.
Yeah, you go from being an interested student in a school, and then you're here now because you took that initiative to say, yeah, I will talk to a current student. And maybe that's why she chose Neumann over other schools that she was looking at, because she asked more questions. She came to the school, she saw the school, she talked to a current student, and she got an idea of what it would be like for her.
Yeah, I sealed the deal.
Yeah,
for sure.
Good job, Rami. You did that.
Piggybacking off of you, what I thought was really helpful is to find like information sessions. Like a lot of these programs are offering virtual information sessions now, because after COVID, like everybody wants to do virtual things. So I encourage, like, if you can't make it to campus and they have a virtual information session, go to it, attend it, see what the program's like, and if you like it, if you like what they're saying, visit campus, make the next step. If that's something that you're really into, do all the research that you can to understand what the program is and what they're about before you apply. So just rank your programs from your most preferred to, just from most preferred. I don't want to say least preferred, because it's still a good program.
Yeah, maybe
Either
like
way.
the top 3 is good.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just found it helpful to do it that way. And
now let me ask you something, Rami.
Sure, ask me anything.
Did you have an Excel spreadsheet for your top 3 schools?
No, actually, I did not.
You didn't learn Excel before then, right?
No, I mean, I did, but it was just not the program that I used. I used like a piece of paper.
Okay.
And I had like a mental checklist too. A lot of things, like, as chaotic as my mind might be, like I have a list of things that needs to get done today, tomorrow, this week, whatever. Just I kind of remember things. It's not foolproof, obviously, but I like to write down the pros and cons for a lot of my programs.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right. That's awesome.
And I have one last question. This is also piggybacking from earlier, actually.
All right.
So for students that are reapplying after getting rejected or waitlisted and not getting in, what advice would you give them?
I'd say reapply. I don't know if other schools have like a certain cutoff date or, a cutoff time that you can apply to a school. But I would say if you are going to reapply, show some improvement somewhere. School. So, if you have to go out and maybe, depending on the program you're interested in, maybe going and getting a certificate in something related to the program and showing us, I got this certificate. Hey, I went out and I went to a community college and I retook a couple of those prereqs and I did excellent in them. So now I'm reapplying and hoping that you guys take consideration of what I just resubmitted. So I would say definitely reapply. But if you are going to reapply after being denied or being waitlisted, show some improvement in your application. It helps.
Speaking from experience, I got rejected my first year and waitlisted my first year, honestly. But it's during COVID. So as I mentioned earlier, the way that I approached improving my application, I continued with the same job that I had as an aide at a PT clinic, gained more hours because experience is everything.
Yep.
The other thing that I did was expand on the settings that I worked in. So I did an inpatient hospital experience. And then I also worked with the geriatric elderly population in a nursing home. So just to say that, hey, I'm not only in an outpatient orthopedic clinic, but I've seen PT in other clinics, in other clinical environments, to broaden my perspective on where PT can go. Could really show the admissions committee, hey, like, he knows more about what's going on in PT than someone who's just been an outpatient and expects to get in. Like, he's broadened his horizons. He knows the possibilities of where PT can go.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's excellent. That's exactly, you did the right thing, and then it all paid off because here you are.
Making a podcast with Jessica Yearwood.
Oh, yeah. Hashtag grad life.
Oh yeah. And with that, I mean, do you have anything else you want to talk about? Am I missing anything, Jess?
No, I think, this was a great first episode that we had, just talking about the importance of what to do in a graduate school application. And I think that overall, this podcast is going to be so fruitful. So honestly, I just thank you for agreeing to be a part of this.
Oh, I'm so excited. I love podcasts.
Because this is going to be awesome. So, we really hope that you find this as fruitful as we hope you did. And we hope that you continue listening to us too. We have a lot of good episodes to come. We're going to talk to some of our awesome program director faculty here.
Yes,
we're going to invite them on the show. We're even going to have an episode catered towards what to do after grad school. We're going to talk to some more current grad students. So lots to come in this podcast. So stay tuned.
Thank you for listening, guys.
Thanks for listening.